The following conversation is for a mature audience. We provide a safe and warm environment for our guests to share in their own experiences, to speak their truth out loud. Viewer discretion is advised.
Motherhood is beautiful, but it's also heavy. It comes with expectations, unspoken truths, and sometimes even resentment that no one prepares you for. Today, I'm sitting down with Leslie, a mom whose words found me years ago during the hardest season of my life. We didn't know each other well at the time, but her message stayed with me. Today, I finally get to share space with her, hear her story, and talk about the parts of motherhood and womanhood that often go unspoken. Leslie, welcome to Truth Without Edits.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course, girl. Thank you so much for saying yes. Leslie, as you know, we kind of like met on social media. I know we have mutual friends in common for sure. I believe your brother, I went to school with him.
Yes.
Many, many decades ago. It feels like 100 years, maybe only 2 decades ago. But you know, it's so nice to like be able to share space with you today and talk about a story that means the world to you and to me, because it starts with our firstborn babies, and we'll get into that. But I'm just so thankful and so honored that you would be here so we can share your story with the world and hope to impact many people listening today, mothers and fathers alike.
Absolutely.
Yes. So Leslie, let's start by touching base on something very, very near to my heart. So back in 2012, you reached out to me on Facebook through Facebook Messenger. And it was during a very difficult time of your life and during a very difficult time of my life. And I'm just going to start it by reading a few sentences of that message. So you said, Leslie, "Hi, I know we barely know each other, but I can't help but to think of you and what you went through with your baby boy. I can somewhat relate to what you're going through. As you know, I lost my baby girl before I had the chance to even see her open her eyes. I would never try to compare our situations, but when I think of what happened to you, it makes me wonder, would it hurt more if I actually had memories with her? I don't know. I'm so sorry about what happened to your son. Words will never describe the pain that we will forever have in our hearts. We were ripped of the chance to see our babies grow up and become great people. Just want you to know that I'm here for you if you ever need to talk. I know it's hard to find people who can understand how you feel, but that's why we have to stick together. Like I said, I know we barely know each other, but we have more in common than we probably think." So I know that brings up a lot of emotions, Leslie, and I just want to thank you, because I think even for me back then, feeling so alone, when you reached out, I remember reaching out to my mom, like, "Mom, Leslie reached out to me. You know, you remember Leslie? Her daughter passed away." My mom's like, "Oh my gosh, yes." And it meant the world to me, because I felt like there's another mom who sees me, right? And I know that our babies didn't pass away from the same thing, but nonetheless, we were two grieving mothers, you know, who had to lay our babies to rest way before they ever deserved that, you know? So do you remember what was going through your mind when you sent me that message back in 2012?
To be honest, I was actually surprised that I did go ahead and send the message, because I'm not kind of that type to just kind of reach out to people that I'm not so close with. But it was just that feeling of, like you said, two grieving mothers, and just wanting you to know, like, you know what, you're not by yourself. It's not the same exact situation, but we're moms who were robbed of a chance, essentially. And I just wanted you to know, I hear you, I feel you, and I'm here.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you so much for that, because it did mean the world. Yeah. Even if we didn't really stay in touch because life happens, right? And all these years have gone by, I always still knew that there was someone in the world, especially in Holyoke, in my hometown, that knew what I was going through. So I want you to know that that always stuck with me. You did mention that it makes you wonder if it would have been easier. Can you it's kind of hard for me to put it into words, but do you mind rephrasing that, what you asked me when it comes to, is it easier to have the memories or not?
Yeah, so, obviously our situations were different. You did have your son for a few years, where my daughter, she passed away before I even gave birth to her. So I always had that thought in my mind, like, yes, it's hard, but I wonder, would it have been harder if I actually had memories with her, if I had seen her, if she was able to look at me, if I heard her cry, if I saw what her eyes look like open, and I remember someone telling me, well, at least you didn't have all of that. But it's like, I didn't, but now I feel like even almost 16 years down the line, I have those questions like, what would she have looked like? What would her laugh have sounded like? What did she look like? Something as simple as, what would she look like with her eyes open? So it's just kind of like that wondering, would it have been harder? Do people kind of look at my situation and say, you kind of got off easy in a way? I don't know. But it's just kind of a question that I always have in mind, even to this day.
And how do you feel about people's comments when they say things like that?
Before it would bother me a little bit more, but now it's just like, unless you're in my shoes and you know how I feel, what you say doesn't matter, what your opinion is, Exactly. I feel the way I feel, whether I had her for 5 years or, the way things played out for me, and my grief is my grief. Correct. And nobody can take that.
Correct. And no one's ever gonna know how you feel and how you process that. And I always think it's kind of funny when people feel like they can make those assumptions, right? Like, like maybe it's easier for you because you didn't have that child for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Like, who is anyone to say those things? Really bothers me. I think sometimes people just don't know what to say.
Exactly. And I don't think it usually comes from a bad place. I think, like you said, people just kind of don't know what to say, or they're kind of trying to make a situation better, but I take it for what it is. I know how I feel, and like I said, it's my grief, and that's it.
That's it, girl. Yeah. And I remember when we exchanged a few more messages towards the end of one of them, you're like, I've always wondered, but now I feel like not one or the other is harder. Yeah. Right? Like, not one or the other. There's mothers that carry their babies for a few months and then they miscarry, right? And then there's mothers that unfortunately have to give birth to their baby without life, like you. Yeah. Then there's mothers that at age 3, their child has a terrible diagnosis or any circumstance, an accident or anything else, right? And I don't believe that anything is worse than the other. We are moms who had to bury our children. Exactly. And that alone is unfathomable.
Absolutely.
So when you reached out to me in 2012, your daughter had passed away 3 years before that. So that was around 2009. And I know we were both so young then, Leslie. I was 22 when my son passed away. How old were you?
I was 20 when my daughter passed.
How do you feel that navigating such a humongous, huge loss at such a young age made a difference, versus if this would have happened to you in your 30s or 40s? You were so young. How do you think that set the stage for you being able to process the grief?
I think for me it was so confusing because I was so young, and I can remember thinking to myself, why would this happen to me? This is my first baby. You can't help but almost question God and life, and how could something like this happen? And I think I had absolutely no life experience to kind of be able to process something like that. And then in my situation, I kind of, I ended up pregnant again right away, and it was the most confusing time of my life, to put it, in layman's terms. It was crazy.
How quickly after, Leslie, did you become pregnant?
So my daughter was born in October of 2009, and then my son was born in August of 2010. So it was the roller coaster of all emotions, of feeling like, what am I doing? How can I put myself in this situation again after what I just went through? And then feeling that guilt of, how can I not be happy right now? You know, like I'm getting another chance, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't.
Why do you think you weren't happy?
It was fear, mainly. It was fear of, I can't go through that again so fast. But part of me was, you know, if I'm given another chance, I need to make the best of it. And I just know that if everything comes out the way it's supposed to and I end up with my beautiful, healthy baby, I know that I'm just gonna love that baby like till the end of the world, because I'm given another chance.
Yeah. And I think for me, same thing, Leslie. I feel like I love my kids so extra. Like, some people are like, you're so extra as a mom, right? Like, so overprotective. But it's because of what we went through, right? Yes. So I think that like, we don't even have to question that. Unfortunately, if you go through something so difficult, like losing a child, you might just be a little extra with the next children that you're blessed with, right? So that's totally normal. And I can imagine that it was difficult bringing that new baby home and wanting to enjoy that baby, but you're still grieving.
Yes.
Right? And we know that grieving is a lifelong thing. That's not like you grieve for 5 months and now you're much better. That's a lifelong thing. We're going to be grieving forever. Yeah. So I can't imagine how it was for you having to like build a new home and new space for this new baby, welcome them in when you're so fresh in that pain.
Yeah, and it was, you know, kind of seeing all of his firsts, which you're so happy about, but then in the back of your mind, you still have that, I should have gone through this already. I should have celebrated a first birthday, a first tooth, you know, all of crawling, walking, all of those things, that you're so happy and excited about. But you do, when you're in a situation like that, it's like, I wonder when she would have walked, when she would have crawled, you know.
Do you want to share, Leslie, at all the day that you lost your daughter? Do you want to share at all, even if it's just a little bit? You know, did you know that something was wrong? You know, what happens when you receive the news? You know, a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I did not know anything was wrong. I went into the hospital thinking, okay, now's the time. It's, you know, she's coming. And we were all very excited. And it was actually her dad's birthday. So we were just over the moon. And we get to the hospital. It's the normal, you know, getting you hooked up and everything. Hooked me up to the monitors. And I kind of started feeling like something wasn't right, because they're just kind of looking around and they keep moving the monitor around. But again, first baby, I didn't know what to expect. So I'm like, okay, they're just doing their thing. They end up calling someone else in, and an ultrasound tech. And then, you know, she's moving around, still thinking everything is normal because they haven't said anything to me. And then she's like, you know, I'm sorry, but your baby has no heartbeat. And even then, it did not register in my mind what exactly that meant. So it's like, okay, like, what does that mean? And then she just like looked at me and was like, you know, I'm sorry, but your baby passed away. And it was almost like everything just kind of went quiet in my mind for a second, and it took me a second to process, like, what does that mean? Like, what are you telling me right now? And then, as you can imagine, it was just sadness and confusion. I'm, you know, just turned 20 years old, first baby. I'm like, how can this happen? What do you mean she's not alive when I have a whole room at home with all of her things waiting? And then just spending the next few hours kind of waiting waiting to actually give birth to her. And it was just the hardest thing ever.
Were you able to hold her?
Yes. Yeah, I will say they were so good. We got time alone with her for the next few days. And yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Leslie. So this episode is about motherhood, right? And the resentment that we may feel in this journey of motherhood, and also talking about the fact that motherhood isn't all rainbows and butterflies and beauty, right? And so I think a lot of times someone is pregnant, they're going to be a new mom, and we're like, oh my gosh, like it's going to be the most beautiful thing. It's the best love on earth. There's no love like it, right? Like, oh my goodness. But then a lot of people hold back from talking about like the really hard parts of it. And although it is the most beautiful type of love, and nothing compares to that love, right? Nothing. It can be really hard and really challenging, right? Because you're raising this little human, or humans, if you have multiple children, and they depend on you. And sometimes you're just trying to get it right, whether you're 20, in your 30s, or your 40s. Like, we're still trying to figure life out here while these children depend on us, right? And they need us to make sure that like they survive, and that they're being fed, and that they have clothes on their backs, and that they have a roof over their head, and that the light isn't being shut off, you know? And that's hard. And so when it comes to someone like you and myself, Leslie, we lost a child. So talking about being resentful towards motherhood sometimes, or this is hard, it can come off wrong to some people. Like, so you mean like you lost a kid and now you have more and you don't appreciate that and you're complaining, right? It can come off like that sometimes. So tell me a little bit about how losing your firstborn has shaped how you parent today, the type of mother that you are. And do you ever feel guilty at all for feeling some type of way sometimes?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think almost on a daily, you have even something so small that you feel guilty about. Like for me, this past weekend, both my kids went with their dad, and I felt kind of guilty because I kind of, my son is 15, and I was kind of like, nope, you're going, get your stuff, you're going with your dad too, because I just needed like that 2 days of just kind of peacefulness and just kind of to get my mind right. But even though you need that, you can't help but feel guilty, like, oh, I made him go, like maybe he didn't want to go this time, or I don't want him to ever think I don't want him home. And it's like, deep down that your kids don't feel that way, but you still have that little bit of in your mind, like, I feel bad that I did that. But definitely losing my daughter has just made me very, very overprotective of my kids. Like I said, even my teenager. But it's also made me that much more grateful for not only being a mom, but just life in general, and just how fragile it can be, and just trying to be, the very best mom that I can be every single day. Some days it's we're up, we're ready, we're going to basketball games, we're, up and about doing fun things. Other days it's just like, today we're just home, mom just needs a break. And even on days like that, I'm still being the best mom that I can be. It just looks a little bit different than other days.
Yeah, that's it. And you need that. You need that reset, because how can you be the best for them if you're not doing the best that you can for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did you imagine that motherhood would feel like before becoming a mom? And then what did it feel like when you were actually in it?
Oh, yeah. So I was very naive in a way, or I wanted to think like, oh, it's just going to be so easy. My kids are going to be very well behaved. I'm going to be the most gentle parent ever. And that is like not the case at all. I try to be, but like we said, Some days look very different than others. Some days you're very patient and you can, be that gentle parent and kind of be soft and be able to show that side. Other days it's like, no, mom runs the show. This is what we're doing. Get it done. And I don't want to have to ask again. But I knew that it was going to be rewarding, and it absolutely is every day. It's just like I said, some days the reward is a little bit more obvious. Other days you're kind of like, today wasn't the best day, but that's okay, because the good thing is, we have another day coming.
That's it. Yeah. And just give yourself that grace. Do you ever feel like you're not allowed to say the hard parts out loud? Like when we're going through a rough day with our kids and we want to like maybe complain about something, do you feel like you're not allowed to like express that to maybe friends or family or the people around you?
Oh yeah, I definitely have those moments where it's like, well, this is what you signed up for. You wanted to be a mom, you made the choice, so you feel like, let me not complain. And then also in the back of your mind, that there's people who want to be a mom or a dad and can't for whatever reason. So again, that guilt plays in, like, how can I feel like this when there's people who wish they could have it and they don't?
Exactly. Yep. I totally feel you on that, Leslie, because I find myself also feeling like, okay, I'm not gonna complain about something because I was the girl who not only lost my child, but then also struggled through years of infertility, right? And really like begging God and crying and believing for a miracle to have more children. So I'm like, I have them now, God. Why would I like complain, you know? But then it's like, crap, like we can complain, like we're humans.
Because it's hard.
What the heck? Do you ever feel, Leslie, like social media or like cultural expectations like make being a mom harder? Because there's so much out there. You open up Facebook's, Instagram, there's like always all these like posts and, like, do you feel like it makes it harder for you to be like the mom that you're expected to be?
I think it can sometimes, if you let it get to you. And, it's easy to go on social media and see, people post the good things mostly. So it's like, oh my gosh, look at these kids. They're doing all these fun things and they're so well behaved. But it's like, that can sometimes get to you. But then when you really think about it, deep down inside, that's not the case all the time.
Girl, you made such a good point with that, because even myself, like when looking at that stuff, I'm thinking like, or with YouTube now. So all these families are millionaires now, right? Like my daughter has been watching YouTube since she was 3 years old. And all these families have all this money because they're creating content, right? Which that's the world we live in. We like, what are we doing right now? We're creating content. I love it. I'm for it, right? But sometimes I'm reminding my daughter, like, our life maybe doesn't look like that because they like, it's their job. Like they're constantly creating content. The mom and dad is playing with the kids and they're building Lego houses and all this stuff because they're creating the content for social media. And sometimes I may feel guilty and think like, oh my gosh, my kid's gonna think like my mom sucks because look at what I watch on YouTube and all these parents are doing all this stuff and maybe I'm not doing that. So in my case, it can, I love that you mentioned that, because I'm like, oh my gosh, sometimes I feel like crap, like look at everything, like look at these moms and dads on social media and I'm not like amounting to anything right now. But it's like, no, I do for them and I do what I can that's in my power for them to feel loved and cared for and to do fun things with them, we could only do the best that we can. And that's the thing. And why I thought this episode was important, because I think that a lot of moms are trying to compare themselves to one another. You are doing the best that you can, like that's all we can do every single day.
Yeah. And sometimes it happens, without even you wanting to do that, it's just like a normal human emotion to, maybe wish that you did, that we had more money to take trips or, do all these fun things that they see other kids on YouTube doing. So it can be kind of easy to kind of feel like, what am I doing wrong, and sometimes it happens, like I said, just without you even noticing.
Do you ever find yourself, Leslie, having to apologize to your children because maybe you yelled at them or you were too rough on them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And I've actually kind of made it a point to, if I do ever feel like, okay, maybe I took it a little bit too far, maybe I'd let, something else that was going on kind of influence the way I reacted, I absolutely will apologize to my kids and just say, you know what, the way that I handled that wasn't the best, and I should not have raised my voice, and I'm sorry. And they know that, mom is trying.
Yeah.
But they absolutely know that if I'm ever feeling like that, they have their apologies.
Yeah. And I love that, because I think it's hard for parents to take accountability sometimes, especially back in the day. Like, I feel like the parents of like the maybe 70s, 80s, 60s, 40s, 30s. No, they like, I'm the mom, I'm the dad, what I say goes. But I am loving like where we are now, because I think we are learning like it's okay to apologize to your kids, like my daughter has said, like, mommy, did you really have to yell? Like, why were you yelling? And I have to take a moment to be like, baby, you're so right. Like, that there was no need, yes, I was caught up in that moment, but I shouldn't have been yelling like that. I'm sorry, so I think for anyone listening who sometimes feels a little guilty because they yelled, or because their child now feels like some type of way, it's normal. Like, I want anyone listening to know, like, it's normal. We all do it, and sure sometimes, like, it's okay to just sit down and apologize to your child for coming off maybe in a way that was a little too harsh, right? Because moms and dads mess up too. Come on, like, we can't act like we're perfect. So you have how many children now?
I have 2 kids.
Okay, what are their names?
So I have my son, Carlito, who's 15, and then I have my daughter, Ari, who's 8 now.
Okay. I have an 8-year-old too. Love that. Leslie, so when you were pregnant with your first baby girl, were you married, in a relationship with her father? How was that dynamic?
So we were not married. We had been in a relationship for a few years.
Okay.
And it was tough. When she passed away, it was definitely hard on both of us. And, eventually it got to the point where we kind of drifted apart, for sure. And even after we ended up pregnant again, we were very distant.
Do you feel that, because a lot of, there's a lot of research that has been done, and it turns out that when people go through a traumatic loss like that, sometimes marriages end up in divorce, or, a relationship ends up, in separation because it's too much to handle. Do you feel that the loss of your child is what caused the separation between you guys?
I think it definitely played a part in it. And I think part of it was because, people deal with grief differently. And part of me felt at the time like he didn't truly understand how I felt, even though we both suffered the loss, absolutely. But there was part of me that wanted him to be just as sad as I was, like cry as much as I'm crying. And, and obviously thinking back now, it's like he felt it just as much as I did. That was his first daughter, first child. She was born on his birthday, and it definitely played a role in it. And even when I got pregnant with my son, like I said, we were very distant. I mean, we would see each other, doctor's appointments, and things like that. So he was still there, but the relationship between the two of us was very strained, very strained. We did end up, kind of making it work, and we were together for years after that, but that time period, very tough,
very hard tough on you. Yeah, it is true, because like you said, everyone processes grief differently, so to have to continue to stick together through the grief and the pain, and sometimes not understand how the other person is feeling, that can be very, very, very hard. I know, like for me, I wasn't in a relationship with my son's father when he passed away, but even just like having to process my own grief, my mom's, my grandmother's, my sister's, that was hard, because we're all grieving differently, so it's complicated.
Yeah, and I think at that age too, so young, our first baby, you don't realize that not only do people, but I think men and women sometimes process grief differently, and he's not one to cry, you know, in front of everybody, or, you know, really just put his emotions out there. And that just bothered me. And I was like, how can you not, you know, like, you're the only other person in my life who even comes close to knowing how I feel, or you should know how I feel. And that was something that I was just like, I've struggled with a lot. Like, how can you not cry? How can you talk about her and not get emotional when here I am, a mess? And it was like, you know, it almost wasn't fair, as crazy as that sounds. I was like, no, it's not. Like, it's not right. And obviously, you know, looking back now, you realize it's not that one felt it more than the other. It's just we processed it differently.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about mom guilt, right? And how that's ever so present in all of our lives. Do you think that that's something that ever goes away, or we just learn how to live with it? And also, is there ever a time where you feel guilty that you can be this mom to the 2 children you have, but you couldn't be that mom to your daughter who passed away?
Oh, yeah. That's, I think, forever guilt that you'll have with you as somebody who has lost a child, never having the opportunity to kind of be any kind of mom to her. But I think even with my other 2 kids, I think there's always going to be things that you kind of feel guilty about. I think as you maybe get older, or maybe your kids get older, you learn to kind of deal with it in different ways. And you can kind of get past it a little bit more. But I think it's something that you're always going to have as a mom, because you don't ever stop being a mom, even when your kids get older. Once you're a mom forever.
Yeah. Thank you for that, because I do struggle with that, Leslie, sometimes, you know, thinking like when my little one, she's 4, when she turned 3, I was like, oh, like my JuJu, like he only ever turned 3, like he never turned more than 3, you know? And I was like, you know, she gets to turn 3, and then she turned 4, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like my son never turned 4, like she gets to turn 4, but my nene never turned 4, you know? And it's just like all those emotions, and I wonder sometimes, like, will this ever go away, or will I just have to live with this forever, you know? And from hearing you speak, you know, you have a 15-year-old, so you've been at this longer than I have. So I guess it kind of reassures me a little bit, where I say, it may be there forever, but maybe I'll, you know, learn how to deal with it a little better as my kids get older, you know, as more time passes. Because as we know, like, time does heal. It doesn't mean that like the guilt goes away, or the pain goes away, or like the memories go away. It just heals a little bit so that you don't like feel the guilt as much or the pain as much. So thank you for that, because that helps me, and I know it helps everyone who's listening to this episode. Is there anything, Leslie, today that I have not asked you that you feel in your heart that you want to share with any mom out there who's listening, any dad out there listening, or even anyone who's listening who has yet to become a mom or a dad, but are planning, you know, to have a baby someday? And, you know, there's so much that they could learn from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best advice that I could give is just don't give up. Don't give up. No matter what, you're gonna have those beautiful, magical days, but even on the days when it's not so beautiful and it's not just all rainbows, and, you know, you have the tough moments, you know, where you kind of have to put your foot down and kind of be the bad guy. Just don't give up, and don't be so hard on yourself. Kind of give yourself that grace and just say, you know what, even if I wasn't the best today, I'm trying my best. And that's the best that we can all do. That's the most that we can all do. Try your best. That's it. If that's what you're doing, then you're doing a good job.
That's it, girl. Oh, that one hit home for me.
Yes.
We're going to do a quick lightning round before we wrap up here. So I'm just going to say something, and then like the first word that comes to mind, okay? Or sentence. One word to describe you as a mom.
Overprotective.
One word to describe your daughter, your first daughter.
Just an angel.
Angel.
In all senses of the word, for sure.
That. The most comforting thing that someone has ever said to you in your moment of grief.
just again to don't give up. Just, you know what? You'll be okay. Even if at the moment you don't feel it, but you will be. And I was.
If your daughter could have opened her eyes that day, Leslie, what's the first thing you would have wanted to see?
Oh my gosh. Just to have her look back at me. That's it.
You know, Leslie, I'm a woman that believes in God, and I believe in heaven, and I believe that there's 100% life after this world, after our lives end on this beautiful planet we live on. I know that there's a heaven. Girl, oh my gosh, do I believe that. And maybe you never got the opportunity to see your baby girl's eyes, but I promise you, Leslie, that I have no doubt in my heart that the day that God calls you home, your baby girl's going to be waiting for you, and you're going to see those big, beautiful, gorgeous eyes. Like, I believe that for you, for sure. And so never lose that hope.
No, absolutely not.
If your children could hear this episode 20 years from now, what's one thing that you hope they understand?
That everything I do it for them. And that's one of my biggest things that I have tried to, you know, instill in them and really get them to understand, especially since it's just been the two of them and myself in our household, that everything that I do is for them. It's for their benefit. It's for their betterment, like everything, even going to work, you know, grocery shopping, keeping the house clean. It's just every single thing that I do in my life, no matter how big or small, is because of them. And I just want them to know, like, you guys are my life and always will be. For sure.
That's it. And we better play this for them 20 years from now, okay?
Yes.
Well, Leslie, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for being with us today. It has been a complete honor to just be able to share space with you and talk about all three of your babies.
Yes.
I don't have the words to just thank you enough for being here, and I can't wait for everyone to hear your story. I know they're going to be so impacted by it, and maybe we'll do this again another time.
Hey, who knows?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. In a world where motherhood can feel isolating and full of judgment, conversations like this remind us to hold space for one another. None of us are perfect. We're just doing our very best every day. Mom guilt is real, but so is the grace we deserve. Whether you're new in your parenting journey or have been walking it for many years, may you remember that your story matters. Your struggles are valid, and you are not alone. If this episode resonated with you, take a moment to reach out to someone who might need a kind word, hold space for them, or share your own truth. Grief, motherhood, and life struggles can be so isolating, but connection makes the load so much lighter. Let's keep reminding each other that we don't have to carry it all alone. Ready to share what you've never said out loud? Visit truthwithoutedits.com and head to the Submit Your Truth tab to send your story. You can even submit anonymously. While you're there, feel free to check out our merch, stream the latest episodes, and join a community that's finally saying it all. Don't forget to subscribe and follow the show so you can stay in the know and be the first to hear when new episodes drop. Until next time, truth tellers, keep showing up loud and unedited.